Hi, my name is Karen Fabian, and I'm the founder of Bare Bones Yoga. And today I want to go over a couple of frameworks that you can use for sharing cues. Now, why would I focus on this? Well, I can tell you that almost 100% of the time that I talk to yoga teachers, the biggest question they have is, how can I share what I know in understandable ways with my students? And let's face it, the way that we do that, the template that we have as yoga teachers, are the cues that we give. We also, in a related way, have the sequence that we share. And the sequence is kind of the roadmap for how we're going to take people on the journey that we've developed for them in that particular class. So if I have a particular anatomical focus that I wish to have for my classes, I can create a sequence. Let's say if I want to focus on shoulder anatomy, I can create a sequence that will take them through the different movements of the shoulder, internal and external rotation, abduction and adduction, flexion and extension. However, if I want to focus on some general movements like side bending or twisting, I can focus on those movements throughout the sequence, and maybe I'll bring up the anatomical focus as well, connected to the shapes that I'm taking students through. However, regardless of the sequence that I share, the cues are the language of the yoga practice. And this is oftentimes where teachers struggle. Many times teachers will come to teaching from being a student. And they're always amazed, and I had this experience as well, at how difficult it is to articulate the practice even when you are a practiced yogi. There's something very different about taking a class and speaking a class. And by speaking, I mean giving the cues. So it's no surprise to me. I've been working with teachers for many, many years. And at this point, I just kind of know what some of the challenges are that teachers are going to share. And this challenge around how do I take what's in here to what comes out of my mouth in the form of these cues is always a bit of a challenge for teachers. So one of the frameworks you can use is you can speak to the base and then work your way up. So if I teach somebody Warrior 1, I could speak to their feet by saying, root your feet into the ground, stack your knee over your heel, squeeze your back thigh, center your chest, and reach your arms all the way up. So you'll notice in that presentation of cues, I literally worked from the bottom to the top. Now the other thing I could do is I could just speak to action cues. So I could say something like, step your left foot forward, straighten your legs, grab a block for behind your front shin. Place your hand on the block and reach your right arm up and lift your gaze up to the sky. Keep pressing into the ground. Reach your arms apart a little wider, and then lift up to stand. So you'll see there, I strung a whole bunch of action-based cues, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And the other thing you'll notice is I made the presentation of each cue very compact. I didn't go on and on and on. I didn't talk about things like angles of the foot or cue to breathing. I basically just said, here's what I want you to do, here's what I want you to do, here's what I want you to do, here's what I want you to do. So it's very specifically focused on action. What if I want to focus on feeling, right? So I could blend a little action with a little bit of somatic work. So I could say, bring your right knee forward, place it on the ground, lengthen through your back leg and lower to your forearms. Center your hips to face the floor. And bring your focus now to your right hip. Take a couple of breaths and let your right hip get a little heavier towards the ground and see what kind of feeling you notice in your hip. Notice the back of the hip. Notice around the hip crease. And then bring your focus to your left hip. And as your left thigh faces the ground, see if you notice anything on the left thigh. Take a deep breath in and out. So there you can see that I kept asking the person, the students, questions focused on different parts of the body. Now you'll notice what I didn't say. Maybe you didn't, but I'll tell you. What I didn't say is, your hip flexors are lengthening on the back leg, notice the stretch. I didn't say your glute max is stretching on the front leg, see if you feel that stretching. Because I don't know what that person's sensation is going to be, even if I know anatomically what is happening. When I'm in pigeon pose, the glute max is stretching on the bent leg side, the hip flexors are stretching on the straight leg side. But I don't know what that person's going to feel. For all I know, the glute max that is stretching is uncomfortable for them, or maybe it feels really good, who knows? So while I can present what's happening anatomically, I don't want to prescribe or impose what their sensation might be. However, what I do want to do in these feeling-based cues is I want to give them an opportunity to tap into how they feel. Much of the magic of yoga comes in with the noticing, lies in the noticing. And so as teachers, if we can encourage our students to tap into how they feel, for many of them it will be a new opportunity for them to bring feeling and to notice feeling in different parts of their bodies where maybe it's been kind of dull. They haven't really been noticing feeling much a lot. Now, the last kind of cue I can share are cues that are anatomically focused. And this is where teachers really have a lot of struggle because, quite frankly, they haven't learned the anatomy. And for many teachers, it's not really their fault. They went to a 200-hour training. And I can tell you in 20 or 30 hours, which is what you're getting, really you're getting, I think, about 20 hours right now according to the current standards of Yoga Alliance. I can't teach you all you need to know about anatomy in 20 hours. I've been studying and devoting myself to the study of anatomy for well over 25 years, both as a student, as someone in the working world, in clinical settings and healthcare settings, and then as a yoga teacher for the past 15 years. So it takes a long time to learn all aspects, and just like any other science-based topic, there are always new things coming up. However, I can, and I do, and my approach to teaching you about anatomy is to focus on the specific key topics that you need to know. And that I can definitely get to in 20 hours. And furthermore, when you're done with my training program, whether I'm teaching you in person as part of someone else's 200-hour training, or whether you're enrolled in my Blueprint Learning program, you'll always have that roadmap. That roadmap will become your roadmap for your ongoing studies of anatomy. And this is another distinguishing factor between my programs and other programs. Other programs, I only hear what happens in them because teachers in those programs enroll in mine, and that's how I'm always kind of curious to hear, why are they enrolling in my program if they've already taken an anatomy program, or anatomy has already been part of what they were learning in their 200 or 500 hour. And many times what happens is everything but the kitchen sink is shared with the teachers. And so there's this feeling of overwhelm and this feeling of frustration and very little comprehension. And so this aspect of learning the key parts of anatomy according to a blueprint is literally the backbone of my program, the Blueprint Learning Program. And so this is where I take teachers through learning the key parts of anatomy and how to apply it through the cues and how to build sequencing that highlights it. So I'll give you some examples. If I want to teach somebody about their quadriceps, I could talk about how in Warrior One, the back leg is straight. As you squeeze your back thigh, notice how the muscles of your thigh engage. Those are your quadriceps. That's the concentric contraction of your quadriceps. If I want to help people understand the function of the quadratus lumborum, which is connecting your pelvis to your lower rib and into your lumbar spine, and is responsible for side bending, as I take them into Warrior Two, I might say something cue-wise like, see if you notice some lengthening on that right side of your lower back. That side bending action is a function of a muscle in your back called the quadratus lumborum. If I want to help them understand the function of lateral hip stabilizers, like gluteus medius and minimus and tensor fasciae lata and the IT band, I might have them come into something like tree and ask them to hug the sides of the body in, turning on those stabilizers of the lateral hip, and I could name some of the muscles. If I wanted to teach them a little bit about the external rotators of the hip, muscles like the piriformis and the quadratus femoris, and the gemelli muscles and the obturator internus muscles, even though I wouldn't be saying most likely those muscle names directly, I might speak to the piriformis. So I might say, hey, let's come into a standing squat. Here we're opening the hips or externally rotating them. One of the muscles that does this is your piriformis. Some of you may have heard of this muscle. See if you can feel that opening of your hip as you bend your knees here and drop your hips low. So how you do it is up to you. Taking my program gives you the blueprint of what to learn, gives you the actual learning through the course and the coaching calls that I do with teachers, and teaches you how to share it through the cues. And what makes it really different is because you're learning the anatomy and how to share it, you ultimately come out of the program really knowing both, rather than just hearing a bunch of cues that you should say without learning the anatomy that's connected to the cue. And what that process does when you don't learn the why behind the cue is it just leaves teachers with a bunch of stuff to say without understanding the why behind each cue. And that only creates a whole bunch of anxiety and a real lack of confidence. What I've found in all the teachers I've worked with is once they've gone through my very specific step-by-step process, by the time we get to applying the anatomy to the cues, they have the knowledge, they learn the cues, and it's like the light bulb moment appears. And that's where the confidence comes from. It doesn't come from repeating a bunch of stuff you were told to say. And in fact, once you know it, it gives you the freedom to say it how you want to say it. So you're no longer tethered to something you're going to write out and hold on to as your yoga script. You're now working off of what you know, so that allows you to share in a very authentic way. So I'm going to wrap up this video by saying, if you are at the point where you are tired of not having confidence, of sharing cues just from a bunch of stuff that you were told to say, and you really want to learn through a blueprint anatomy, I'm going to include the link here to my waitlist for the Blueprint Learning Program. That's my program that teaches all of this, and all you need to do is click the link and get on the waitlist, and then the next time I open enrollment, I'll let you know. I might even email you once I get your waitlist request and give you an opportunity to enroll in between my major enrollments, and that would be something that may be available to you if you're lucky. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss my next video, and certainly feel free to email me any questions that you have or comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Namaste.